This morning we got PCE inflation, which is what the Fed generally looks at for inflation numbers, and it came in higher than expected. And yet the market is still up pretty significantly, with the Nasdaq up 1% and with crypto up significantly as well, with Bitcoin up over 4%. So what is happening right now? Well, I think there are a couple things going on. If you don't mind, subscribe to the channel. Also, check out the link underneath the video to Moomoo, where you can get up to 15 free stocks with the link. Tons of money that you can make for free just by signing up and depositing $100. So let's take a look at the market. Obviously, NASDAQ is doing pretty well today. Crypto is doing pretty well today. I think there are a couple of reasons for this. Now, we're still getting a lot of bad news. Like, for example, this week we saw euros and we saw the pound falling pretty drastically versus the US dollar. Now, the DXY is coming down a little bit, which I think is positive for the markets, right? We were at 114.5 just a few days ago. Now we're at 112. It's cooling down a bit, but we're still getting other news like Germany borrowing 200 billion to cap consumers' energy bills. We talked about that yesterday. We also got news just today that Dutch inflation leapt at 17%, mostly due to the high energy costs. And then we also got PCE numbers today, which came in at 0.6% for core PCE, which is higher than expected. We also saw PCE come in higher than expected as well. This is generally what the Fed likes to look at in terms of inflation. Now, we saw Jerome Powell also say recently that they're basically going to continue to raise rates until jobs are affected, and we saw low unemployment claims yesterday. So everyone thought that this was this really bearish scenario. It was just horrible today. Even if I had to make a bet, I would have bet that the market was going to go down today. And yet we're up 0.9%. And crypto's up even more than that. So there are a couple reasons for this. First, I think we have to realize that inflation is still coming down, even though it's not coming down as much as expected. The fact is we're still at 6.2%. Just a few months ago on PCE, we were at 7%. Last month, 6.4%. So while it is higher than expected, it's still lower and coming down. We also have numbers from real estate coming in, for example, rent, and that is still going to continue to climb up. That's a little bit delayed. So we do have that causing the PCE to be higher than expected or higher than people want. But we still have some progress in terms of inflation numbers, even though it is slower than expected. Now, with Bitcoin, I think we have to realize that all these different currencies just dropping like a rock does help the narrative for Bitcoin, but I don't think it necessarily helps the narrative short term, pushing it out of this range. I think most people are looking at the overall market saying that Bitcoin's going to fall until the overall market is better. So this might be just a little bit of a rally that just sells off, in my opinion. I could always be wrong, but I would assume that it would just sell off a bit when the market turns down a bit, or even just over the weekend. I would not be surprised to see this because we've been floating right in this range, 18 to 22,000 for a while. There are a couple different reasons the overall market could be jumping today. Obviously, it's kind of a fool's errand to try to figure out why the market's doing exactly what it's going to do or why it's doing what it's doing all the time. But we did hit some important numbers. We hit new lows on the S&P 500 yesterday, so that could be a little bit of a reason why the market's up today. We could also just be seeing that the overall markets have kind of run out of steam on the bearish side. So maybe just bad news isn't necessarily terrible news anymore. Like we saw bad news come in today, but it could be worse. Maybe that's it. I don't necessarily think that's the case, but we could also just look at the fact that we were so far down yesterday, right? Tesla was down 7% yesterday. Now it's up 2.64%. So it's still not making up what it did yesterday, but maybe the market's overextended to the downside yesterday. Google was around 97 something yesterday, 96, I believe, even $96 and something cents. So it could just be that we overextend ourselves on the downside, and now we're having a bit of a bounce. Now, we did get some really cool news, or some really important news from insiders, supposedly at Tesla. They give some output forecasts, and they're expecting a huge jump in Q4. So we have the Q3 numbers coming this weekend, and we're looking for about 360 to 370,000 deliveries. But now they're talking about by the end of the quarter, the fourth quarter, they're expecting 495,000 Model Ys and Model 3s. This is about 95% of Tesla's output. So when you include the Model S's and Model X's, that would be about 520,000 cars. That's really significant growth when you compare that to just this quarter, 360,000. That's a huge quarter-over-quarter increase. The crazy thing is we already had Elon saying that he wanted to hit 40,000 per week, which over a quarter is about 520,000. But that's by the end of the year that he wanted to hit that. He wanted to hit 40,000 per week by the end of the year. And usually, obviously, with increases in deliveries, we see it go up like this over the quarter. So the average is lower than the last week. However, now it sounds like they might be closer to 45,000 or so, maybe 50,000 deliveries per week by the end of the quarter, especially if they're ramping up from where they're at now. Now, this is still not coming from Tesla officially. They have not responded with a comment, but it was from two people with knowledge of its projections. So obviously this would be a huge jump in terms of Tesla deliveries and would put them well on pace to hit 2 to 2.5 million deliveries next year, which I think could be on the low end now if they're ramping up this quickly. And they are expecting to announce possibly a new location by the end of the year. I'm going to cut it off here so that way you don't get a mid-roll ad. Just go check out the link to Moomoo underneath the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.